The early movement
Vocab
was an expression
is
of
educating
cultural black
the people of
nationalism
Great Britain
that found its expression as a result of
on
racial
Hebrew
discrimination
Israelism,
and oppression
which
in the
is
American South.
growing rapidly
The beliefs and rhetoric of the black
in
Jews
Great
became
Britain.
the model upon which the Moorish divine movement.
Well, I'm glad everyone is here. How you feeling? Make some noise. Good, all right, all right. Who has ever seen maybe preaching in a market in Brixton, off the tube, something like that, a group of Hebrew Israelites preaching? What about at Speaker's Corner? Who's seen them there? Okay, that's awesome. Some of you I know have engaged with him before. Let's learn a little bit about them today. We're going to define Hebrew Israelism. We're going to define it first using a technical way. This is from Jacob Dorman's book, Chosen People. And then I'm going to give kind of my more apologist-friendly definition. Dorman defines Hebrew Israelism. He first of all calls it black Israelism, and here's how he defines it. Religions that teach that the ancient Israelites of the Hebrew Bible and that were black, and that contemporary black people are their descendants. Accordingly, quoting from the book again, this is a great book to read, by the way. The blackness of black Israelites is not denoted by the color of their skin, but by the racial identity they ascribe to the ancient Israelites, end quote. There are a variety of Hebrew Israelite groups, and they have less sort of controls than a lot of other religions have. And so there's more variation than within a lot of other religions, because basically you can have it highly idiosyncratic to where it goes down to one particular YouTube channel or one particular leader, and they'll have variations in their beliefs, which can be quite maddening. And so some of them will say, this is a black Israelite thing, and what I mean by that is they sort of have limitations on who can be in and out. Others say, no, also we can include indigenous and Native American, usually is the way they're framing it, because this is often in a Western context over there, West. And then they'll sometimes also include people of Latino descent. And that's where you see the 12 tribes chart that'll tell you which group you are, which is actually following a tradition established by the British Israelites. Anybody know much about Anglo-Israelism? You ever met one of them? Fascinating. I imagine maybe, especially if you're older, because they're not as hot and popping these days, but they exist, and some of them even have a chart where they'll say, this place, for example, Denmark, that's the tribe of Dan, because Dan went through and left his mark. You think I'm joking, though, don't you? But what if I told you I'm not joking? Anglo-Saxon sounds a lot like, when you break it down properly, Isaac's sons. Don't you know? You think I'm joking? It's a long story, but there's a precedent for this within Anglo-Israelism, which was perpetuated by the Worldwide Church of God, especially on the radio back in the day. Now, this is how I define it. It's a web of belief and practice based on two central and inaccurate, if you want to be charitable, you could say dubious claims. One, most descendants of enslaved persons of African descent are the true biblical Israelites. Now, as mentioned, they may include others, and some of the groups will say you can't have salvation if you're of the wrong ethnicity determined by me. Others will say you can have salvation, but you must be grafted in through us. So they essentially take the mediatorial role of Jesus upon themselves at that point with the grafting in idea. Two, lineage has salvific impact, meaning God really, 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 really cares who your great-grandfather was. And that's why one of the first questions, if you meet one of these guys on the street, they may ask you is, what's your nationality? Or what was your father? This is often some of the first questions. Just like in the book of Acts, right? No, I often tell them this message is not apostolic in any way. Read the book of Acts. How was it done? What you're doing is nothing like that at all. Well, that's because at that time our people knew who they were, but now they don't. So no. This is not apostolic. Dr. Jonathan Jackson's a scholar who's also written a book called Thin Description. And he mentions this, which is relevant to this discussion. He uses this word, I like this word, YouTubification. YouTubification is an important part of the Hebrew Israelite story, one subset of an expanded universe of cultural stories told on the web. And this is how you can have this diverse group all over the globe kind of held together by strands of social media. Because by and large, when you talk about Hebrew Israelism, it is an American thing. Sorry, but we've become very good at exporting our cults. Because people got money, they can publish books, and they can do a lot of stuff on the internet. That's the short version why. And they're usually pretty excited about it. And so Americans have given you the Latter-day Saints, which I understand are quite prominent in England, or at least used to be. They have given you the Jehovah's Witnesses and a host of a number of other cults, some which we'll talk today in my workshop later today. So Hebrew Israelism is our latest present, but it's just giving back since you gave us Anglo-Israelism first. So this is just reciprocation, baby. We're going to take a quick, brief survey of UK Hebrew Israelism. There are many Hebrew Israelite camps in the UK pictured here. Let's go through some of them. These are all pictures from the UK that I've taken, screenshots. IUIC is in Birmingham and London. That's actually a video of them in Manchester as well, as proof by the Union Jacks, just so you guys got that one on purpose so you could see, oh yeah, that's not New York City. Are curses good or bad? IUIC London. You see where they're at. You can find their school on their website. They actually have another location. They don't talk about it as much, though, because, well, I'll get to that in a second. But these are the top guys from the States coming over to help set up the London camp. In the middle is Bishop Nathaniel, a former New York City cop, who's now the leader of IUIC, which is pushing close to 10,000 members and growing literally every year. You'll see. So if you see the purple and gold guys, it's a specific group called IUIC, Israel United in Christ. You may have seen them when the BBC did a documentary on the murder of Joy Morgan. Does anyone know who Joy Morgan was? Has anyone ever? Okay. Well, it happened right here. It's a pretty tragic case. Basically, you had Joy, who I think is of West Indian background, meet another man at IUIC, and they became friends, and short version of the story is he murdered her. One IUIC got a male murdered a IUIC female, and then when he was caught, wouldn't tell them where the body was. And so it wasn't until 8 months later that out in the woods they were able to find where she was. Brother Israel, do you remember where that was, the rural area that they found her in? Where was? Stevenage. That's where. Okay, so does anyone know where that is? I think it's out there. That's where he had hidden her, and they found her. She was so decomposed that they couldn't even determine the cause of death. But the BBC did like a 15-minute, well-produced documentary on the death of Joy Morgan. So this is a very real, serious thing. This happened a couple years ago, where you even have this. Now, to be fair to IUIC, they violated some of the rules about male and female relationships in the process of this situation. And so it's not like IUIC tells people to do this, but it just kind of is a very tragic reminder of the danger of some of these groups, because what had happened is, like all cults, she had completely cut off her family. She was sort of a happy, smiley person, like her name Joy, and turned into, as her family said, a racist. And this is what IUIC did to her, and ultimately, unfortunately, it cost her her life. And it's a tragic, tragic story. That's their old headquarters in East Ilford. Is that right? That's how you say it? Yes, okay. Gathering of Christ Church is also here, GOCC, that's them. They go around different places, Bristol, Leeds, Manchester, Sheffield. You can find videos of them everywhere. They wear colors that are usually white and blue. They're one of the few groups that do baptisms. Most don't believe in water baptism, and none of them believe in Trinitarian baptism, because none of them believe in the Trinitarian. But a few of them do water baptisms, such as GOCC. This is at their Feast of Dedications a couple years ago in 2018. And you also have smaller groups, some that we don't have in the States. These guys I've never heard of, Israelite Apostolic Heritage, but I can tell you where they meet if you'd like to go talk to them. Right in front of Wingtrap every Saturday, 3 to 6 p.m., 4 Cross Cheaping, Coventry. Tell them Vocab sent you. And then GMS, Great Millstone, they're all over, usually in front of apartments, and they also meet in parks off to the side and dress in this manner. They're all over, though. As you can tell, their videos usually sort of lower resolution. They're sort of the DIY, do-it-yourself camp. They have a group that teaches in the kingdom, not only will they enslave non-Israelites as they deem it, because remember, they think they're Israelites, they will enslave and torture them. By the way, which all the groups I've shown you so far believe, except for one. They believe that if a woman has her period, she is able to be not just married and have sexual relationships with, but you can take her or seize her, which means if she's unmarried in the kingdom, you'll be able to rape her, but then she becomes your wife. And they think that's according to biblical law. It's actually called the rape doctrine. And if you ask them about it, they'll say, we're not out raping anybody now. And say, yeah, but your doctrine of the kingdom of God teaches that you'll be able to just, you know? But to be fair, it's only this group, not all, okay? So the rest would condemn it. But maybe you're seeing some similarities with certain versions of Islam here. But to be fair, at least they wait until she has her first period, unlike Muhammad. I'm just saying, who's worse? Wake Up Israel. I believe they're in Birmingham and London. I'm going to go try to talk to them if possible.
Where is your dad from?
Show me in the Bible where someone asked
He's not answering the question.
Show me in the Bible where someone asked
Let me get numbers 1 to 18.
Show me in the Bible where one of the apostles asked that question.
Right? He's expert in this. He's folly.
Show me
foolishness.
in the Bible.
Esther 101 first.
Show me in the Bible.
You don't know where his dad's from. You can't tell us his dad's a black man. It's like, his dad's a Mexican or Hispanic. You can't tell us. Right? So we're going to continue on and prove all things. Right?
There's a smaller group as well. Well, now that I've proved that they're here with you, at least 25 groups that I can determine in the area, let's talk a little bit about their
history. A little bit about their history here. This is definitely the story of an American movement. This is from James Landing's
excellent book, Black Judaism. Quote, the early movement was an expression of cultural black nationalism and found its expression as a result of racial discrimination and oppression in the American South. The beliefs and rhetoric of the black Jews became the model upon which the Moorish divine movement and the Nation of Islam were based. He's right. Now, here's what will happen. Since in general, the public has been unaware about who Hebrew Israelites were and all of that, they'll usually say, oh, look, they have some similarities to the Nation of Islam or this other group. And maybe they do, but here's something you should know. Chronologically, Hebrew Israelites were in the 1890s. They're first. They're before all that other stuff. In fact, they're one of the earliest. It's just only in the past couple decades have they risen to prominence that more people have become aware, but they've been around since the 1890s. We have a little bit of time for questions. I want to stop there and not say anything else of what I think I need to say and try to have a little conversation with you all.
If there is a Q&A, please wait for the microphone. It will come to you. And we do have a limited time on that, so please keep your questions concise.
Yes, you came from Dublin. First question. Primarily, it seems like it's from Christianity. Every now and then you'll have someone who say they dabbled in Islam, but a lot of times, brother, they did it on the way out of the Christian church. Rarely do you have like lifelong Muslims who join up, that type of thing. There's just not the same appeal. Usually, the main people they grab are poorly churched Christians. That's the primary group they snatch. Good question. Yes, ma'am. The Israelis don't know much about them except there's 3,000 to 5,000 Hebrew Israelites who live in Dimona, Israel. And they came from the south side of Chicago in the 60s. But what's happened is they've kind of integrated into larger Israeli culture, and they've really muted or softened a lot of their beliefs. The African Hebrew Israelites of Jerusalem, that's the name of the group, their sons and daughters serve in the IDF now even. So most Israelis don't even know, they don't know about this. Every now and then you'll see a Hebrew Israelite group who will take a trip to Jerusalem and do things like, it's really just for the camera though, they'll take something that'll say, Lord, hasten the destruction of Edom. And by that, because they call white people Edomites, they're saying, hurry up and kill white people and Jews, God. And they'll put it in the Western Wailing Wall as like a gag. But most Israelis don't know about them. Some religious Jews in America know about them. Some are concerned, but usually they're more concerned about the alt-right, as they call it. They're less ready to criticize Hebrew Israelites, it seems. You had a question next, I think. I thought it was you had your hand up for a while.
Yeah, so I just
Oh, you got a microphone. Nice. Thank you so much. Go ahead, sir.
Do you see growth correlate with racially charged events in the States for the Hebrew Israelites? And do you see them capitalize on racially charged events?
I have a little formula. Great question. He said, do you see growth coming from racial unrest, right? My little formula is social unrest plus social media equals Hebrew Israelite growth. So I've met some Hebrew Israelites who literally say, after there's a police shooting, for example, that's publicized, they'll say, why are black people suffering? And become Hebrew Israelites off of that Google search. So yes, it's basically, I've even had one Hebrew Israelite say, this is not a joke, this is what one said. We love it when racist cops kill one of our people because it equals more of us waking up to our identity. Over here with the mic, yeah.
Yeah, you said there's 1 to 7 million or something Israelites, Hebrew Israelites. Is there a 501c3 legal nonprofit organization that funds these groups? And are they organized enough, or are they just kind of diffuse, kind of in the beginning, kind of just joining in many different kinds of other districts or groups that are kind of formulating?
The support for Hebrew Israelism mainly seems to be very middle class based. It doesn't seem like there's rich donors secretly behind the movement. There are 501c3s. In fact, the purple and gold guys, IUIC, according to a 501c3 I've seen of them, now I don't know if it's been changed or updated, out of all the religions they had to register under, they registered under Islam. Now, that's not every group. A lot of Hebrew Israelites understand are anti-501c3. They'll say, we don't need the white man's paper. Some are very kind of idealistic that way. But it seems very middle class, meaning the people in the movement seem to be true believers. I don't see any. Now, some of them are trying to change that. Some are trying to do schools and care centers and get grants. But I haven't seen much success. Over time, I think they'll probably have some success in that, because also some do the prison ministry stuff. They're in the prisons more and more. I got to go with a microphone now. Okay, yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask regarding the Ethiopians or the Falasha one. Are they any relation with this group, or they are different group? Because
from Ethiopia?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Great question. Okay, so a lot of people when they hear this will say, what about Beta Israel? The Ethiopians prefer, I guess, the term Beta Israel. Falasha means like outsider. They don't like that term as much, but most of us know them as Falasha. Israel, of course, recognizes Beta Israel in some kind of way as legitimate and have done numerous rescue operations to get them out of Ethiopia into Israel. So even that alone, I think, sets some of the Hebrew Israelites in opposition to the Ethiopians. Generally speaking, what I've seen, not all, but a lot of them view the Ethiopians as having a false claim. Some of them will give some lip service to it. And in fact, if you study the beginning of Hebrew Israelism, a lot of them tried to attach themselves to Ethiopia. But what happened is over time they developed arguments independent of that, and they've dropped the Ethiopian association. So there's a very muddled relationship with that. They have different opinions on it. But this isn't really, it's not the same thing, basically. It's pretty much a different thing as far as it goes. Yes, someone over here.
Hello. Just to let you know, we've only got 3 minutes on this one. But in terms of the Hebrew Israelites obviously claim that reference to Gentiles in the New Testament is a reference to Jewish diaspora that's been Hellenized. What verse would you go to sort of break that connection in their minds, in their exegesis of Scripture?
Great question. One thing is to go to the discussion of the Hellenized Jews, the widows in Acts who are receiving less in the food distribution. Because what I'll say, if I say, look at this verse about Gentiles, and they'll say, those aren't Gentiles, those are Israelites scattered in a Gentile state of mind. Just called Gentiles, but they're actually Israelites. I'll say, oh, you're talking about a Hellenized Jew? Well, Luke knows how to describe a Hellenized Jew. He describes them right here, but that's not what's being described here. So what you're looking for exists as a category in a sense, but it's not what's being talked about right here. So why aren't they saying that? Because it is somewhat of a different Greek word, first of all. And the other thing I'll do sometimes is ask them for basic lexical proof for that claim. Someone had a last question. I think we could maybe do one more. Did the microphone? Oh, you finished up with people having a mic? All right. Okay, guys, well, we've got to wrap it up here. I thank you for allowing me to do something a little bit different than the rest of everything else. Thank you very much. I'd love to talk to you more about it if you want to. Let's...
Thank you, Wilco.